Hey everybody, I'm here to announce the recipient of this year's first annual Stephanie Vesper Memorial Barn Swallow Fund. I'm going to assume that if you're watching this video that you're familiar with myself and my story and the history of my lovely wife. So I'm not going to spend much time sort of talking about that. Instead, I'm going to jump into the process that we went through making the decision and talk a little bit about some of these kids that, these young women that we got submissions from. First off, I'd like to thank Queen City Wheels. Their generous donation helped to sort of boost this fund this year and give it a little more punch, which I'm really excited about. I'd like to thank the Childresses and the Kentucky 6 Hour, which, yes, for their contribution as well. Various friends and family that kicked in a little bit to kind of help build this fund up for this year, and Shimano, who have graciously offered to award a pro discount on components and other parts and things for the year for whoever wins. So a lot of wonderful people sort of helped to make this what it is for this year. I'd also like to thank the Hermans, Scott and Julie, for helping connect me to Lionhearts in particular, but the cyclocross community as a whole as well, and helping me to sort of navigate how to reach out to people, how to make this thing happen. I don't know that I could have done it without their help, so thanks to all of those people. As far as the selection process goes, I did feel like I was personally connected to some of the people in here maybe a little too much, and I was worried about that in two directions. One, that I would actually not choose someone because they were my friends and I didn't want to give the appearance of some sort of cronyism or favoritism to my friends. And then I was also worried about some people who don't know me that well or don't know my character that well that might actually think that if they felt that like who I chose was someone that I was close to. So what I ended up actually doing was recruiting some friends of Stephanie's from different parts of her life. So friends from her school days, church, and her work at Children's Hospital. And they had no knowledge of any of these families or their kids, and were directed to just think about Stephanie, think about her spirit, who she was, and use that as sort of their guidance in reading these nominations and essays to make the decision about who should win it. And then I had them rank the recipients in a specific order and awarded points based off of where they fell in each person's list. And then I did also fill out a list like that with points, but had it only reserved for if there was really close sort of spacing in the points somewhere at the top, or if something if there needed to be a nudge somewhere, then I would bring my points into it, which didn't happen. So I actually left the decision basically up to a non-biased committee. So hopefully that makes everybody feel comfortable with how we made the decision. I do want to say that this has been so inspiring for me, and I just feel so lucky to have had the opportunity to learn so many of these stories of these young women and what they're doing, and the courage and strength that they have, and the kindness and compassion that so many of them have. It was really a beautiful light in kind of a dark time for me. So thank you to everyone who did participate and submit. I do want to say, before we talk about who the winner was, I want to talk a little bit about many of the candidates who submitted and just give you some of the quotes that were given to me and notes about each of the candidates. Some of the notes are from me, but the majority of them are from the Friends of Stephanie's who did the the scoring on this, and I apologize if I butcher some of your names, right? I've not been in this community for very long, so I'm not necessarily familiar with the surnames. So I apologize if I butcher anything. You can correct me next time you see me at a cross race, and I promise I'll get it better next year for you. Okay. First, I want to talk about Olivia Rademacher. Olivia was described as quietly focused and determined, but always quick with a smile and encouragement. And I thought that was just a lovely pair of traits to highlight about a young woman. It definitely made me think of Stephanie. She was also described as small but mighty, another sort of description for Stephanie for sure. I also mentioned really loving that she works to help her teammates and friends see the positives in their perceived failures. Just really lovely qualities for everyone. We also had Samantha Taylor. She showed such passion for advocating for women's participation in sport. And I love the connection that she made to the personality of the barn swallow in the essay. She described it as, she obviously did her research, which was nice, describing it as a symbol of love, loyalty, and peace, and as someone with a playful nature that loves to spend time with family. Really beautiful. Katie Smock, one of our self-nominated athletes. There was a genuine sweetness to her nomination submission. They said, I feel like she is a really hard worker and does what she needs to get where she wants to be. And that the part that got to me was the end when she stated, quote, I really hope that this goes to who needs it most. And they loved how thoughtful and selfless that was, and I do too. Sarah Tejas, they said, I think Steph would have really liked the fact that this kiddo pets all the dogs at the races. How sweet that is. I think she would like the fact that she also gives her time to volunteer and that she is the encouraging teammate that others look to. Next, we had Lexi Stierwalt. It says on the notes, Alexa gets what Stephanie loved about cycling, community and the feeling of freedom accompanied with accomplishment. She's found her identity in cyclocross and will be a champion of the sport for a long time, I am sure. And I would also add her energy and enthusiasm was so evident in what she wrote. It was quite moving. Carrie Masters. Carrie is described as someone who is coming into her own with cycling. I love how committed she is and how incredibly all in she is with this sport. She was described as humble and strong, and her dedication really impressive. Again, like all of these nominees were just such great characters, traits, enthusiasm, strength, like encouragement. It's all been really beautiful. And this brings us now to who our winner is. And I want to first talk about some of the descriptions that they gave here. Steph would have loved how this submission was written, they said. This young lady also sounds just like Stephanie, which made me smile. This kiddo is also super determined, and the quote at the end was magnificent, which I'll give to you here in just a second. The other quote, her bubbling personality is one that just sounds like Stephanie. I love the words that were used to describe her boundless energy, grit and determination, and welcoming attitude. She sounds like an amazing girl. And the quote that was in the essay is one from William Dawson in a book about the birds of California. And it states, one hardly knows what quality to admire most in the barn swallow. All the dear associations of life at the old farm come thronging up at the sight of her. You think of her somehow as part of the sacred past, yet here she is today, as young and as fresh as ever, bubbling over with springtime laughter. That quote means a lot, especially to me, in the context of the loss of Stephanie and the hope that I find in engaging with this community of young women in this sport. That idea of you think of her somehow as part of the sacred past, right? And thinking of her as gone. And yet here she is today, as young and as fresh as ever. sorry, seeing so many of the qualities that I loved in her portrayed so amazingly in these young women is just beautiful, and it is really a way for her spirit to sort of carry on into the future. So, without further ado, I would like to announce that the winner of this year's inaugural Stephanie Vesper Memorial Barn Swallow Fund is Izzy Lawhorn. She just really, the essay, the qualities that were represented for her resonated really heavily with everyone that read these. And you can see in the quotes the connection that they felt that she had to Stephanie made this a decision that we were comfortable with making, despite the fact that we really all just wanted so badly to be able to give this to everyone. They were all just so wonderful. And obviously on a personal level, you know, my connection to Joe and the things that he's doing in his community and the ways that he's reached out to sort of try and help take care of me, I couldn't be happier to see this going to anyone else. So congratulations, Izzy. Hopefully we'll see you at Harbin, and we can go through the ceremony of awarding you. On a final note, I would like to add that the support that came to me from people with Lionhearts, people with Midwest Devo, and even from a team that's way up north near Cleveland, Shenanigans Cycling. I have decided that I'm actually going to disperse some additional funds this year. I've already had a conversation with Shenanigans Cycling about throwing some support towards their athlete that submitted, despite the fact that they're kind of out of the OCVX range. But for the teams that are in the OCVX range, for Midwest Devo and for Lionhearts, I am going to give each of those teams an additional $500 to use in any way they see fit in the development of growing women and junior women in the sport. So I'll present those also to representatives from both of those lovely and just impressive organizations at the race at Harbin. So thank you for listening. I know this was kind of long. I just felt like I wanted to address a lot of this stuff and not just make a post saying, hey, here's who won. Thanks to everyone who's been so encouraging and supportive throughout all of this. Come out to Harbin this weekend and celebrate with Izzy and all the kids who are out there just kicking ass and inspiring me every time that they take to the course. Thank you, and hopefully I'll see you soon, and if I don't see you at Harbin, I'll see you later this year out on the roads, trails, or grassy fields. Thanks.